being here, and we're just thrilled to be able to welcome Lydia Branston, who is the Executive Director of the Gubbio Project, which I know as I'm new, as we're kind of restarting a lot of our programs and collecting donations, it's a name that we hear a lot, but I just wanted to invite Lydia and have a little bit more of a chance to hear about the work that Gubbio does and how we might be able to continue to partner with them and support the work that they do kind of on behalf of some of our vulnerable citizens in San Francisco. So thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to welcome you.
Thank you. I feel like we could be a circle, but so I'm not always at the front of the room. But thank you so much, first of all, for Amy has been like a big champion. We met on Twitter. So there are some good things that happen on Twitter. Like, you just like push that love out into the world sometimes. It's like, especially on platforms like Twitter. Thank you. So I'm here representing the Gubbio project community. I'm the executive director of the organization, but I like to see myself as like we're kind of a reverse triangle. You know, my job is to make sure that everyone has what they need to be able to do their jobs, and those people in our community are what make us a special place, and that is our guests. And so I'm going to start with the name Gubbio, especially with you kids here, sort of talk a little bit about why we're called the Gubbio Project. People often ask us, like, what's Gubbio? And I was like, well, Gubbio is a town in Italy, and we are an organization that was started by a wonderful human being, Father Louis Vitali, who is a huge activist, Franciscan friar, who really believed in our common humanity and the Franciscan values of respecting and bringing everyone together, not pushing people out or separating, but bringing them in. And he saw his conversion was through his work with lepers, who during that time were ostracized from society because of a disease. And people thought that the disease was one that was a moral affliction. And he didn't see it that way. He saw that they were people who were ill and who needed to be embraced and loved and not pushed out. And so we at Gubbio have that same ethos, that same spirit of like bringing people in, not separating people. And so the story of Gubbio is St. Francis was walking through, and there was a village who was preparing with all these sticks and knives and pitchforks and stuff, and they were getting ready for what looked like a battle. He said, "What's happening?" And they said, "Well, there is a wolf that is menacing our town, and the wolf is killing sheep. It's scaring the villagers. You know, it's menacing the town. We're going to go kill it." And St. Francis, who was a great lover of animals and all of God's creatures, decided to say, he said, "Hold on a second, let me have a little meeting with the wolf." So he goes and he finds the wolf, and he says, "You know, what's happening? Why are you menacing this town?" And the wolf said, "Well, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm separated from my pack. I'm all alone, and I need to eat." You know, and so St. Francis went back to the villagers and said, "You have a hungry wolf that's on its own and is, you know, in need of care, and if you feed it, you know, it will help you take care of your animals out in the fields." So they came to an agreement, and the wolf became a beloved member of the town. And to this day in Gubbio, there is a sculpture of this wonderful wolf. Mm-hmm. And so the question I get asked a lot is like, well, who is the wolf at the Gubbio Project? Mm-hmm. Right? Who is the person who's the wolf? And a lot of times people assume that the wolf are folks who are experiencing homelessness, mental health issues, addiction issues. I like to say that we're all the wolf. You know, that we all are sometimes understood. We all have needs. Sometimes we're misunderstood. But that we come together with our common humanity, that we can find a way to be together safely. Right? So Gubbio Project. Yeah. So we're an organization that comes into sacred spaces. Right now we're at St. John's in the Mission, beautiful Episcopal church. It's been there for a little over 100 years. Has a beautiful church, beautiful courtyard, a wonderful community. And during the day when the church is not in use for religious purposes, we open it up and we invite people to come in. We put cots in the sanctuary where people can sleep. We call it sacred sleep. And in the courtyard, we serve coffee and snacks, and people can come and be in community with each other. We put out tables for people to play card games, or, sometimes we put out that cornhole thing. People like to do that. But mostly what we do is we talk with folks. We don't produce anything. We're not producing enormous amounts of meals. What we do is we get to know our folks. So someone's been to our program for a couple of times. We like to make sure we know their names so that we greet people. And sometimes when we greet people by name, like, hey John, how you doing? It's a very different feeling for that individual who often doesn't get called by their name ever, right? And the names that they get called sometimes, the way that they're described, is a very othering thing, the poor, the homeless, the people with mental health issues, with addiction issues, right? All of these issues are actually just an individual in crisis. And so that's what we focus on, is that person, and who they are and how they got to where they are now. And what are the barriers that they're facing to be able to make a change? Some of those barriers are systemic, meaning that they're barriers that are part of the way that we have put our society together. And some of those barriers are personal, right? So we try and just get to know that individual and then walk with them. And in walking with them, start to see if we can open some of those doors, push down some of those barriers. And so many of our guests and our community that come into our program, when they do stabilize and they have housing, they come back. And that's what I really love, is that we have folks who still come back and will report to us, or come back and say, gosh, I had such an awful day and I just had to come here because it makes me smile, it makes me feel good. And so just being able to create a space that is safe, not only for the people who maybe, when you see on the street, are scary or unnerving, but a safe place for our community of volunteers and the parish to also be in community with folks in the 60s. And so finding our community, which I think is just so important, right? And so that's what we do. We also have a Partnering with a Purpose program, where we're a very small nonprofit. There are 6 staff. Of the 6 staff, we all have some lived experience with either homelessness, incarceration, addiction, and social service work. And we make sure that we hire from the community, and not only that, that we understand that the work that is being done is skilled work. Right? There's a lot of misconception about how people can do this job, and it comes from this big, warm, loving place, which it does, but it's also a lot of skill. And so making sure that, when I took over this program, making sure that people are compensated properly, that when you're taking someone from a life where they have nothing and you're moving them into stability, part of stability is having a living wage. And so it's such an important part of what we do also, is advocating for people to be able to have, a life where they don't have to work 90 hours a week into hard jobs, to be able to, because what you do is you end up burning out, and then it becomes more. But honestly, I think I have the best job in the world. I don't think I would do anything else. So I'm happy to answer some questions, or let's talk Partnering with Purpose. Partnering with Purpose, what we do is I got off track because there's 6 of us. We're a 40-hour-a-week organization, right? We open at 6 a.m. and we close at 2, and so we're all working full time. So we don't have the ability to have like caseworkers come, or so what we do is we partner with other organizations that have a larger program. So we have foot care nurses that come, and they take care of people's feet, which is a huge thing. Eyes and feet, people, eyes and feet, right? It's like, so taking care of people's feet, especially those people who are living on the street with diabetes and all kinds of like issues that have to do, like if you're experiencing homelessness and your feet are really bad, it's an intense situation.
I mean, I've had a blister before, and that's like,
yes.
That enough is like hobbling. So
yes, agreed. I have horrible feet. I'm always in these little flip-floppy things, and so I'm always like, let me take care of your feet. And then we have people come in and do HIV and Hep C testing, and if someone is positive for one of those 2 things, we can get them directly into treatment so that they can come to us to get their medication, right? We have massage, and again, people are like, it's like, isn't that a luxury? Some folks haven't been touched, literally in a kind way, in years. I mean, just the laying on of hands and giving someone like a gentle, like relief from stress, but just that peacefulness of that activity, helps us to again open folks up. After the massage, it's like, how are you feeling? And then the conversation starts. You start to learn more about the person. We have a lot of, I can go on, pet food, all kinds of stuff. They all come to us. So that's how we're growing, is we're growing by partnering with other organizations, amongst other things.
UCSF is a new partner?
UCSF is a partner. They come and they do vaccines. So we at Gubbio have the most of their street vaccine programs. We're the most successful. So they come and we're still doing COVID vaccines and monkeypox, flu, all of those vaccines. And again, it's one of those things that because it's a trusted environment, people who have yet to get those vaccinations because of conspiracy theories or whatever, which you can imagine in the population of people with mental health issues gets like really, because they trust us, and we say like I got the vaccine, I'm fine, they're fine, please get it. Yeah.
And your dog and cat, because that's important. Your animals are so important.
Yes. So we have a full belly bus comes and they bring dog and cat food and different kinds like coats and leashes and all kinds of stuff, and they will also vaccinate the animals. And then we have visiting nurses that come as well that do wound care, because that's one of the things that people, again, it's like the soft tissue infections can become very, very troubling. We just don't want people to end up in the hospital.
So on average, how many people do you serve each day?
So we serve about between 75 and 150. Yeah, that's that.
When did you start?
So the program started about 17 years ago, and we've been at the current location for 9 years.
Wait, does the Gubbio project go year-round or just for a certain amount of time?
No, we're year-round.
Yeah.
We are definitely year-round. In the winter months, when it's raining, for example, it's so important because what happens is for people who are living on the street who don't have home to go to, the shelters open at 5 p.m. So if it's raining all day, it's really important that they have shelter during the day.
Would you put tents up? I saw.
We put tents up outside, the church is open inside, and then also what we try to do is extend our services so that they match up with when the winter shelter opens.
And are you guys always at a church or are you at sometimes other places?
So we have always been at churches. So we were at St. Boniface in the Mission. St. Boniface in the Tenderloin was where we started. And then now we're at St. John's. And currently that's as far as we can go for right now because of our limitations. But yes, we would be open to going into a mosque, a synagogue, churches, sacred spaces of any kind.
How did you like switch like spaces, or is that just not like set? Is it just
We're pretty stable. So we've been at this space for 9 years, and we kind of stay there. Yeah. But if someone were to call us and say, hey, we are interested in doing this in our space, we would help them to organize on how to get it started.
Besides relying on the professional services, and I know it's wonderful the Sunday school is collecting things for Gubbio. I taught at Notre Dame de Victoire. I know that once a month the kids make sandwiches, or Greg Douglas was responsible for making sandwiches. And I don't know if they're going every Friday or one Friday a month where they serve breakfast.
Yes.
They're still
Yes.
doing that.
So that program kind of slowed down during COVID,
Right.
and we're building it back up. So yes, anytime someone wants to bring us, sandwiches or a breakfast meal or anything that's I like to say, make it with love. Like we had, what was it? Was it Twitter or Salesforce? I can't remember, but they do it like a day, and then they brought us. It was 2 pieces of white bread with a slice of bologna and American cheese, and I was like, thank you. And this is the meal that you get when you go to jail. Right? That's a jail bag. Is what we call it. Right? And I was like, it's triggering. And it's those things that people don't necessarily think about. It's like, this meal, it's the thought is lovely, and it's a very triggering thing. Can we rethink what we're gonna do? Right? Can you do a German potato salad? So it doesn't have mayonnaise in it, but it's vinegar, and like something like that, and something that is a little more, a bagel, something that just is something that you would put in your kid's meal, not like, this is one of the things that differentiates, what we do from what we call institutional programming, where it's like, oh, they need nutrition, here's nutrition. It's like, no, what they need is attention. Like, there's a lot of neglect for people who live on the street. And so what we try to do is to give them that sense that this is a place where they belong and are cared about and are valued, not seen as a problem, but as a person, right? And it's like, a lot of times people are seen as a problem. That needs to be fixed, yes.
I've been curious about, to what extent do the people that you sort of attach to the label of homeless, do they have sources of income like Social Security or disability income or something? There's so many programs out there that meet an awful lot of needs, and you see a huge, it seems like a huge number of people that still are homeless.
Yeah, we did a survey. We're planning on doing a survey in the summer, but the last survey we did was about 4 years ago. And of the people, and also when I was at St. Anthony's, we would do, it was a much bigger institution, we would do surveys. And it was something like 70% of the people had 0 income, right? I have one of our, let me just give you an example of what income means to folks, right? Social Security for a person who has either had marginal work or minimum wage jobs their whole life is about, I think it's 1,124. Now you add Medicare to that, right? Now you're at 900. Medicare Part D, right? You're at 850. So that's $850 a month for everything else. That's rent, food, toilet paper, right? It's so for many people. I have one woman who's 71 years old who takes her check every month and she gets 1 week in a hotel, and the rest of the time she's on the street. And she's 71 years old, and she has some mental health issues, where she feels like the cleaning products in the shelter systems are to, give her an allergic response. I don't know if that allergic response is real or not real, and it doesn't matter, it's real to her, right? So she will not go to a shelter because she feels like she gets picked on, she feels unsafe, and she feels like she's perhaps manifested that into like this other condition. But her dollars that she gets just do not cover what she needs. $800, an SRO in the Tenderloin or in the Mission are running at around $900 a month, right? So you're looking at, for someone like her to be able to live in public housing, you need to be in a housing unit where they take a third of your income. But those are the units we're missing, right? That's the piece where it's like we need more housing like that.
It sounds like a lot of, some of the problems that could be solved if we had some form of programs that provided housing on a temporary basis to people that are in need but have no other sources of, or insufficient sources of income. Because everybody comes from all walks of life, and some people start out adulthood with existing problems of the nature that you're describing, addiction and mental health, and they can never earn enough to build up enough, yet it doesn't seem like it would be so terribly expensive program compared to so many other things we have to provide some form of basic housing for people who are in that circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of walked a weird sort of like zigzag line of like these tiny houses, where I'm like, oh, it's not a house, it's a garden shed, it's like, but I've come around to believe, because what I'm seeing is people bounce out of housing a lot, is that, when COVID did a lot of damage to people, who were living on the streets. Mental health issues have skyrocketed. I'm going to use abstract language because of the population, because of the kids, but the substances have changed, right? They're extremely dangerous. We did a very good job of shutting down the organic substances from coming in, and now we've moved to chemicals, right? And the chemicals can get, because it's such a small amount, can do so much damage. What we're seeing is people who are like really, really traumatized, and there's the population of people who dip into homelessness and bounce out, right? Because what they need is a lift up, and then they're good to go. And then there's the people who have experienced trauma from childhood, don't have a family structure that they can rely on, don't have something to go back to or live for, right? It's the street life is where their friends are, it's where their family of survival is. And for those folks, it is, when you talk about encampments, those are groups of people who have found each other to try and find some kind of a safety pool. And so when you start pulling that encampment apart, you have to be very intentional about it, because we're seeing a lot of people overdose in temporary housing because their support systems have disappeared, right? And so that's why the navigation centers were so successful. They closed down during COVID because the navigation centers would take an entire encampment and move it into the navigation center. And then there's people who are still together. They still feel like they have a sense of community. And then you can start working on, okay, so you have a family in Ohio, are they supportive? Is it a safe family environment, right? There's all kinds of reasons that people people bounce out, but that's why I think the work that we do is kind of where the safety net under the safety net, that people who are falling through all those safety nets end up in Gubbio, and we create a community, a safe community there for them where they can express themselves very openly. And so, you know, and by doing that, we can kind of figure out, like, can we become that support system so that when you move into housing and you have a problem, you can still come back to us and be like, you know, oh, the next door neighbor, you know, and you're like, huh, you know, I just visited a couple of guys who got married. It's such a crazy thing. This is a couple that have been together for 20 years, 2 men, 20 years on the street for 15 of those, right? They're still together. They argue all the time, right? And somehow I'm their kind of marriage counselor. And I'm always like, okay, you know. And now one of them is 65, the other one is a little younger. So he got an allocation to a senior sort of housing allotment, not in a senior housing facility, but a senior housing allotment. But it's for one person. His husband sleeps on the street out in front of the unit. And he can visit him for 2 weeks out of the month, right? So for 2 weeks out of the month, he could go in and stay in the, so they were having some kind of a thing happening. And so I went over to visit them. And this is the first time I'd been in their unit, which was maybe as wide as this table to about here, this big, right? Not a 10 by 10, more like an 8 by 8, right? So the bed's here, it's got a little tiny kitchenette, no bathroom, and it's the 2 gentlemen and their dogs. They both have mental health issues. They both have substance use disorders. And I was like, guys, it is a miracle that you guys are still together. I was like, if you put me in that space with my teenage daughter, we would both be like, yeah, it would not be good. I mean, driving home in the car with her sometimes isn't great. And she'll say the same about me. But you know what I mean? It's like, you know, and then people have outbursts and people are like, oh, that person's acting irrational. Well, what? I mean, it's not humane. It's crazy, right? But it's what they've got. So it's really, I mean, it's really about finding the grace, you know, and understanding that people are really struggling, you know.
Is there any support from the city, or do they consult with you on where the monies could be spent better to help the homeless and people who are addicted?
You know, I mean, if I had my magic wand and I could change one thing that I think would make everything better, it's federal. It's not local. It's universal health care. I mean, universal health care in terms of getting people into treatment, universal health care in terms of getting people their psych meds. Methadone should be part of universal health care. The fight to get people healthy, you know, and then once you go off that edge where it's like you don't have the proper medications, you don't have I've got people who are taking certain substances for pain because they have pain. You know, they also have a substance use disorder that comes from that they can't get. Like if it's like, oh, you're drug seeking, you don't get your medication anymore, right? So where do they go? And it perpetuates itself. It's a lack there. The healthcare in this country is shameful. It's shameful, you know. And so that's where I was. It's such a, you know, this is the thing. It's like we read in the papers here in San Francisco about the horrors of San Francisco. This is happening around the country. It's not a San Francisco problem. The economy is changing. The way people work is changing. It's like there's an evolution happening that is leaving people behind. And so the question is, like, how do we as a society decide how we work, how we care for those people who may not be able to care for themselves? And some of these folks that we're talking about are the folks who are not going to skip like a stone, you know, where it's like they hit homelessness and they bounce off. Some of these folks drop. And it's like, who's gonna catch them? And how do we take care of them? And I think that it's a huge pleasure and honor for me to spend my days with these folks. They're some of the most, I mean, I've got stories that aren't appropriate to tell here. But in the end, people are people, and we all want the same thing. We want to feel seen. We want to feel heard. We want to have someone that loves us, even if it's just one person, someone that loves us, and we want to feel healthy and safe, you know, and it's pretty simple. So if that's in a tiny house, okay, let's build it. You know, why did it have to cost $110,000? I don't know. Don't get me started.
Thank you so much for visiting with us. I hope you all, the 11 o'clock service needs to get prepared for, but I